rounds, right?
2 rounds.
Stand by! Stand by! Fire!
American Howitzer M777 in the war of Ukraine against Russia. On April 14, 2022, the United States officially announced that they would supply Ukraine with 18 units of 155mm Howitzer M777 and 40,000 shells for them. This news was considered sensational by many world media, and here is why. First, it will significantly increase the combat power of the Ukrainian army. And second, it shows that the United States and its allies in the North Atlantic bloc intend to provide Ukraine with almost any available weapon in order for them to win the war with Russia. What is this M777 howitzer, which caused such a sensation in the world when it was supplied to Ukrainian troops? It's all about the truly unique characteristics of this weapon. Thanks to it, the Ukrainian military will be able to destroy targets at a distance of up to 25 miles with literally one shot. And this will significantly complicate the conduct of hostilities for the Russians. Now it will not be possible to freely place reserves in warehouses with ammunition and fuel in operational proximity to the front line, but beyond the reach of Ukrainian artillery. That is, at a distance of 12 to 15 miles. With the M777 entering the battle, this distance will have to be almost doubled, and this will increase the delivery time to the front line. In addition, the effectiveness of Ukrainian artillery fire will sharply increase. The time to hit the target and the consumption of shells for this hit will be reduced. And a 155mm projectile weighing almost 100 pounds will smash any tank or a crossing that the Russians are massively building to force the Ukrainian rivers. In a word, the Ukrainian troops will soon have another serious argument to prove to Putin that he was fatally mistaken in deciding to attack Ukraine. Let's now take a closer look at what the M777 howitzer is, and how the designers were able to ensure the highest accuracy of fire at a distance of up to 25 miles. First, let's refute the false opinion that since this howitzer is mainly in service with the United States, then it was developed in the United States. This is not the case. The howitzer was created by specialists from the British defense company BAE Systems. This howitzer is designed to replace the obsolete M198 in service. It began to be developed back in the early 80s of the last century by the English company Vickers, which later merged with BAE. M777 was a real breakthrough in the field of artillery systems. For example, titanium and aluminum alloys were widely used in its design, for the first time in the world for artillery. Thanks to this, it was possible to achieve a significantly lower mass of the cannon compared to other similar 155mm artillery systems. The weight of the M777 is only 4,218 kilograms. For example, the Soviet-towed 152mm MSTA-B howitzer, which is in service with the Russian army and some post-Soviet countries, weighs more than 7 tons. That's almost 2 times more. Of course, the use of titanium alloys dramatically increased the cost of the cannon. For example, the cost of a 2008 contract with Canada is known. They paid $114 million for 37 cannons, along with all related equipment and services, which gives the M777 a notional price of $3.9 million per unit. Expensive. But do not forget that these 18 guns will be delivered to Ukraine under the Lend-Lease program. That is, the payment will stretch for decades. For example, Russia stopped paying the United States for weapons supplied under Lend-Lease during World War II, only in 2006. That is 60 years after it ended. In addition, you will need to pay only for the surviving weapons. You might say, so what? A howitzer is not a plane or a rocket, where the struggle is for every kilogram of weight. The howitzer doesn't need to fly. Yes, the howitzer does not need to fly. However, why not? Due to this low weight, the M777 howitzer can be transported using the USMC MV-22 Osprey tilt rotor and the CH-47 helicopter on an external sling. And this dramatically increases its mobility. After all, now you can transfer it for 100 to 200 miles in just a couple of hours. Yes, and moving it on the ground is also much easier. After all, cannons often have to be transported not only on asphalt, but also on country roads, and even off-road, which is often the case in Ukraine. But lightweight is not the only advantage of this howitzer. A digital fire control system was used in it, also for the first time in the world. This made it possible to drastically reduce the number of service personnel. The crew of the M777 howitzer is only 5 people, and for example, the crew of the M198 howitzer, which we've already talked about, was 9 people. The use of the digital system allows you to determine the location of the cannon and aim it at the target quickly and accurately. This reduces howitzer combat readiness and ensures the rate of fire of 7 rounds per minute. But most importantly, the digital fire control system allows the M777 howitzer to fire high-precision GPS-guided and inertially guided M982 Excalibur projectiles. This is a guided active rocket projectile with an increased flight range, launched from a howitzer barrel. It was created by AE Systems Bofors and Raytheon Missile Systems. The projectile is made according to the Duck aerodynamic scheme. The warhead is multi-purpose. The basic version weighs 48 kilograms and carries a 22-kilogram high-explosive warhead. The fuse can be programmed to explode in the air, on contact with a hard surface, or after penetrating the target. The programmable targeting system allows the howitzer crew to configure the Excalibur to hit a specific geographic location, allowing the military to destroy high-priority targets with single projectiles, such as a particularly problematic enemy pillbox or river crossing. A single Excalibur round can hit a target that would otherwise take 10 to 50 unguided artillery rounds. The use of these shells with the M777 howitzer allows you to fire at targets at a distance of up to 25 miles. In this case, the circular probable deviation does not exceed 10 meters. Combat experience in 2007 in Iraq showed that 92% of the shells fall at a distance of no more than 4 meters from the target. This ammunition, in addition to the United States, is also in service with Sweden, Australia, Canada, India, and the Netherlands. Norway has also shown interest in acquiring these guided missiles. Now, Ukraine has also joined the countries where this effective guided projectile will be in service. Its cost is about $70,000, but again, do not forget about Lend-Lease. The firing range of the M777 howitzer with a conventional projectile is 15 miles, or 19 miles with an approved aerodynamic ERFB projectile. It should be said that there are 3 versions of the M777. The first is a basic one, with optical aiming aids, which were subsequently upgraded. The second version of A1, it has a digital fire control system, with inertial and satellite navigation. And the most modern is A2, with the ability to fire high-precision M982 Excalibur projectiles. Howitzers of the last version will be delivered to Ukraine. Structurally, the M777 howitzer consists of 2 units, a cradle and a gun barrel. The cradle consists of 4 pressed titanium tubes, an accumulator, 2 recoil cylinders, and a balancing mechanism. The gun barrel includes the barrel itself, 39 calibers long, a muzzle brake, a towing lug, a primer feed mechanism, and a screw breech. The carriage consists of 2 units, the body and the saddle. The hull includes 2 front-side stabilizers and 2 separate supports, equipped with self-digging shovels and shock absorbers. A hydro-gas suspension is installed on both sides of the body, equipped with an axle and wheels with an aluminum rim. A small manual hydraulic pump is installed on each wheel station to raise and lower the system. The howitzer was adopted by the U.S. Army in 2005. In total, the U.S. military placed an order for 1,001 howitzers, 580 for the Marine Corps, and 421 for the Army and National Guard. Thus, the M777 became the main artillery piece of the U.S. Army, and at the moment, up to 70% of all M777 howitzers built are of American origin, and the total cost of the American order has exceeded $2 billion. This howitzer is quite successful in the international market of artillery weapons. Many countries are showing interest in it. For example, the Canadian Army purchased 39 M777 howitzers from the United States under the Foreign Military Sales Program. Their first battery was deployed to Afghanistan in February 2006, and the M777 field howitzer has proven to be a very effective artillery fire support system, performing well in the hot Afghan climate. Currently, this field howitzer is in service with the armies of not just the United States and Canada, but also Australia, which has 35 of these artillery systems. Thailand has also made an order for 15 howitzers. The possibility of a deal with India has been discussed for a long time. The Indian military is considering purchasing 145 M777A2 howitzers. They announced their intention back in January 2010, but since then the deal has not begun to be implemented. The parties cannot agree on its terms. But back to Ukraine, it can be rightly noted that trailed artillery is inferior to self-propelled artillery in terms of its effectiveness. Less maneuverability, additional time for deployment, and leaving a position. However, there's a lot of sense in the logic of the Pentagon, which decided to transfer precisely towed guns. The fact is that in the US Army there are only 2 155mm systems, the M777 and the self-propelled M109A6 Paladin on a tracked chassis. If the choice fell on the latter, then this would require the deployment of a much larger system of support and training. It's also necessary to understand that the tracked Paladin has less operational mobility, and it's only possible to transfer it on trawls, or by rail over considerable distances, for example between the Dnieper and Donetsk. And this is very dangerous in the conditions of Russian air superiority. The trailed M777 does not have this problem, and is much more mobile in operational terms. Moreover, a large number of trailed guns remain in the artillery units of the Ukrainian military, and for the military themselves, this is just a switch of one weapon for another. But this will require promptness when leaving the shooting site. After all, the enemy has radars for counter-battery combat, and the delay in changing the firing position is fraught with the fact that the crew can be hit by Grad multiple launch rocket systems, or a mortar strike. And due to simpler maintenance and short-term training, it's possible to use the M777 in battles after express training for a week. At least the beginning of training for just such a short program in the United States was officially announced on April 19th. Well, it remains for us to wait a bit to assess whether the main American weapon, the M777 Howitzer, will justify the hopes placed on it, and also test the conclusions of many experts who suggested that the supply of M777 Howitzers is only the beginning of the transfer of heavy modern weapons to Ukraine, and not obsolete Soviet weapons that were gathering dust in the warehouses of the former Warsaw Pact countries. What do you think? Is the supply of these weapons to Ukraine justified? Or maybe it was necessary to put some other artillery systems instead? Write about it in the comments. By tradition, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are many interesting reviews ahead.